My 11-year-old sister became obsessed with Hitler after I bought her a World War II documentary for her birthday. When I came home from college, I found a 6-year-old girl from next door tied up in her closet because she was training her to be Anne Frank. On my little sister Tulika's 11th birthday, I got her a gift. It was Hitler, or more specifically, a documentary about Hitler. You see, she had severe ADHD and hyperfixation, so World War II content was her newest phase. At first, Tulika's focus on the Jews made me proud. Over Christmas break, she'd sit her butt on the couch and watch 14 hours straight of theories, real footage, interviews, the works. She only stood up to change her tampon or take a shitty. Mom would bring her sandwiches, stroking her hair, saying, "My little historian." Little did we know this was the calm before the storm, because one afternoon, when I went into her room to remind her to feed the cat, I saw something so crazy I almost called myself. Her legs were spread while she hunched over her desk, surrounded by notebooks, drawing detailed battle strategies, maps covered in red X's marking enemy positions. "Tulika, this is a little weird. Shut the F up and check this out," she interrupted. "All the historians do this, and I'm gonna be one." I wanted to slap her and tell her to touch grass, but instead, I just nodded, because it was still an upgrade from when she used to spend all day gooning while playing Mario Kart. When I left for college, I figured she'd be okay. I wish I'd known that it was the last time I'd ever see her again, because the girl I returned home to wasn't my sister, for the most part anyway. The first thing that hit me was the smell when I opened her door. Musty military surplus mixed with something else. Maps covered every inch of wall space. Red strings connected pins like some detective's crime board, and Tulika sat in the center wearing a full military uniform, clearly unwashed for days. I would have rather dipped my own hand into the butthole of a crackhead than hug her. Mom pulled me aside, tears in her eyes. "She's scaring the other children." I don't blame them, I wanted to say, but I knew that wouldn't help my mom, so I just wrapped my arm around her and nodded slowly. Later that week, Mom finally snapped and took Tulika's German dictionary during her study time. I heard the crash from downstairs as Tulika's fist went through the wall. "You just ruined my translation!" she screamed. I ran upstairs to find Mom pressed against the hallway, clutching the book while Tulika stood over her like she was ready to murder. After that, Tulika installed a lock on her door. I tried talking to her, but she barely opened it. When I pushed to see inside, she slammed it shut. My fingers barely escaped. "You don't visit enough to have opinions," she hissed through the crack. "I'm going to be a military historian, just like we planned. Or did you forget you encouraged this?" I left, but the guilt ate me alive. 2 weeks later, I came back with a peace offering. Rare World War II artifacts I'd bought online, thinking maybe we could bond over history again. When I entered the house, everything felt wrong. The entire house was silent, other than the sound of a silent moaning sound coming from Tulika's room. "Mom!" I called out. Nothing. Suddenly, Tulika ran down the stairs to show me the living room. She'd moved her entire war room there. Maps and photos covered the walls. "Why did you come down here?" I asked. She didn't look up from her notebook. "My room's being fumigated. Don't go up there." Her voice was flat, mechanical. "Where's Mom?" She shrugged. "Who knows? Maybe she's visiting Grandma, just like you visited me." I frowned, uneasy, but something in my gut screamed wrong. While she was absorbed in her books, I slipped upstairs to her old room. The smell hit me immediately. Sweet and chemical, like someone had dumped cleaning supplies to mask something worse. Suddenly, everything made sense, because in the closet, behind Tulika's false wall, was the most disgusting thing I'd ever seen. 6-year-old Sophie from next door, dehydrated, barely conscious, with duct tape over her mouth. She'd soiled herself what looked like multiple times. "What the actual F?" I screamed while grabbing her and running for the stairs, but Tulika was already there, holding a replica shotgun I'd bought her for Christmas. "Step away from Anne Frank. She's learning survival." Her eyes were empty. I shielded Sophie, and we crashed into the living room, her war museum. I grabbed at her maps to keep balance and pulled everything down. Photos, strings, years of obsession crashing around us. "You destroyed everything!" she yelled. She scrambled to gather wet photos, sobbing. Her hand hit exposed wiring from a desk lamp that had shattered. I called 911. I sit in the hospital waiting room as Sophie's parents scream at me. Their daughter nearly died because of that psycho sister I enabled. My phone buzzes with a text from Tulika's psychiatric ward saying she's demanding to see me. Sophie's mom grabs my shirt, shaking me while her husband paces behind her. The security guard moves closer but doesn't intervene yet. I pull away and head to the psychiatric facility, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. The visiting room smells like bleach and despair. Tulika sits across from me, her hands folded calmly on the metal table. She looks smaller in the hospital gown, but her eyes still hold that empty intensity. She leans forward and explains that Sophie failed the test. Then she asks if I've been checking on the others. My stomach drops as I realize with horror she means there might be more children. Her clarity despite the medication makes my skin crawl. When I demand answers, Tulika just smiles. She whispers that Mom understood the mission before the dictionary incident. That's why she had to be reassigned. My blood runs cold at her casual tone, like she's discussing homework instead of our mother. My phone rings. Dad's calling from his business trip. He hasn't heard from Mom in 3 days. I lie and tell him she's at Grandma's while my hands shake against the phone. Tulika watches me with that knowing smile. I race home from the facility, tires screeching as I pull into our driveway. Mom's car sits in the garage, but she's nowhere in the house. Her phone rests on the kitchen counter with 47 missed calls. The coffee cup beside it still feels warm to the touch. The basement door has a new padlock I've never seen before. When I rattle it, something shifts downstairs. A muffled sound that might be movement or might be my imagination. I run to the garage for Dad's bolt cutters. The metal gives way with a snap. I descend into darkness, fumbling for the light switch. Mom sits zip-tied to the water heater, dehydrated but alive, tape over her mouth. Her eyes go wide when she sees me. As I cut her free, she gasps and sobs. Tulika made her help with the project. There's another child at the old Robinson house. Mom knew but was too terrified to stop it. She rocks back and forth, unable to meet my eyes. My phone buzzes. Tulika's roommate at the facility, who's leaving tomorrow, agrees to pass a message. The text comes through moments later with Tulika's words. She asks if I found my birthday present in the basement. There's one more gift at our old hideout. Mom finally stops crying enough to explain. Tulika forced her to help just this week after threatening to frame her for Sophie's imprisonment. She drove Tulika to 2 locations locations under duress. The guilt pours out of her in broken sentences. I search Mom's dresser while she showers. Hidden under old sweaters, I find a notebook with addresses and dates. Tulika's recruitment schedule lists 7 names, 4 crossed off. Sophie was number 4. My hands shake as I photograph each page. The psychiatric facility calls. Tulika attacked an orderly who looked Jewish and is being moved to maximum security. The administrator's voice sounds strained as she assures me Tulika will be contained. I don't believe her. I drive to the Robinson house, abandoned since the foreclosure last year. The root cellar door hangs open. Inside, I find 8-year-old Tyler from Tulika's history club. He's convinced he's training for the resistance, reciting facts about hiding from soldiers. Tyler's parents haven't reported him missing. Tulika sent texts from his phone about a sleepover at a friend's house. She had access to his phone for weeks through the history club. Tyler shows me the messages proudly, like it's part of the game. I coax Tyler into my car while he insists I'm ruining the mission. Tulika promised he'd be a hero. He keeps asking when he can go back to training. The hospital staff takes him gently while I fill out paperwork with shaking hands. At the grocery store, Sophie's dad confronts me. He shoves me into the cereal aisle, demanding to know what else my Nazi sister did. Other shoppers stare as he lists Sophie's nightmares. I have no answers that will satisfy his rage. The school principal dismisses my concerns about Tulika's history club when I visit her office. She shows me glowing parent reviews, talks about Tulika's enthusiasm. The kids loved her lessons about courage and survival. She suggests I'm overreacting to a family crisis. I break into Tulika's locked room that night, using the bolt cutters again. Filing cabinets line one wall. Inside are detailed files on every child in her history club. Psychological profiles note which kids are lonely or bullied. Family schedules show when parents work late. Each file has a recruitment potential score. One file marked graduated shows photos of a girl named Amy, who moved away suddenly last year. The notes describe her grandfather's Holocaust survival story. Tulika wrote that Amy had genetic potential, but failed final testing. My stomach churns. 3 history club parents meet me at Starbucks after I contact them. They compare notes about their kids' sudden behavior changes. One mom mentions bruises her son couldn't explain. Another describes nightmares about hiding in attics. They thought it was normal childhood stuff until now. I tracked down Amy's family on Facebook. They moved across the state after Amy spent 2 weeks in psychiatric care for trauma-induced delusions. Her profile shows a happy girl before last year, then nothing. Her parents don't respond to my initial message. Amy's older brother Jake responds to my second attempt. He says Amy still wakes up screaming about failing the test. She won't eat certain foods because Tulika told her they weren't allowed in hiding. She draws pictures of small, dark spaces. Mom finally admits the full truth over dinner. Tulika's blackmail started 3 days ago with edited recordings. They made it sound like Mom was encouraging the training. Tulika forced her to provide 1 transportation assist to move supplies. The manipulation started earlier than any of us realized. Jake agrees to meet at a diner the next morning. He brings Amy's journals from before they moved. Page after page details Tulika's lessons and punishment schedules. Amy wrote about earning points for staying silent in small spaces. Losing points meant losing food. The systematic cruelty makes me sick. Tyler's parents storm into our house that evening demanding answers. While they shout at Mom, I notice something strange on my phone. Tulika somehow changed her psychiatric facility's contact info in my phone. The number I've been calling isn't real. My blood runs cold as I realize the implications. A blocked number calls while Tyler's parents continue their tirade. I step outside to answer. Tulika's voice comes through clear, using a gas station payphone. She expresses disappointment that I'm undoing her work. Then she mentions knowing exactly where Dad's staying on his business trip, down to the room number. The line goes dead before I can respond. I recognize the pattern immediately. Tulika's applying the same psychological pressure tactics on me that she used on those children. The threat against Dad, the disappointment angle, the careful timing. She learned these techniques somewhere, and now she's weaponizing them against her own family. Wow. The detail about Tulika changing the contact information in OP's phone shows careful planning that goes back further than anyone realized. The psychiatric facility's actual number takes forever to find. When I finally reach them, the truth hits like a sledgehammer. Tulika escaped during yesterday's shift change by exploiting a fire drill. She's been free for 18 hours while we all thought she was safely contained. The staff only discovered her absence during evening rounds. Tyler's mom calls me frantically that same night. She found Tyler building a hideout in their attic using blankets and stored boxes. He refuses to come down, insisting Tulika told him they're coming on April 30th. He won't say who they are, just rocks back and forth repeating the date. Multiple children remain under her influence. I spend hours photographing every page of Tulika's recruitment files before our house alarm suddenly triggers. The security panel shows multiple entry points activated simultaneously. Mom and I huddle together as red lights flash through the windows. Someone's definitely trying to break in, testing our defenses. Police arrive within minutes but find no one. The officers explain that without evidence of immediate danger or actual entry, Tulika's escape remains classified as a medical issue rather than criminal matter. They suggest we change our locks and stay vigilant. Their dismissive attitude makes my jaw clench in frustration. Jake and I meet again the following afternoon. We bond over our shared need to protect our siblings from further harm. He reveals Amy was locked in a shed for 31 hours straight as part of Tulika's Anne Frank training program. The same systematic pattern, just with a different child. His hands shake as he shows me photos of the shed's interior, scratched with Amy's fingernails. My search through Tulika's online history uncovers disturbing activity. She frequented WW2 roleplay forums for months, specifically targeting threads about educating young historians. Her posts recruited children for immersive education experiences. Parents thought she was just an enthusiastic teenager sharing her passion. The breadcrumbs lead back over a year. Jake shares Amy's therapy notes with her parents' permission. They detailed Tulika's graduation ceremony, where Amy had to choose which of her stuffed animals would live or die. Tulika made her act out selection processes, forcing impossible choices on an 8-year-old mind. The therapist's annotations note severe trauma indicators throughout. More parents begin believing my warnings after I show them Tulika's detailed files. One father, a military veteran, immediately recognizes actual military indoctrination techniques adapted for children. Tulika researched thoroughly, studying psychological operations manuals and resistance training programs. She perverted real military concepts into her twisted curriculum. April 30th looms just 5 days away. Tulika's journal indicated this date would be when her graduates would prove their training. The entries grow increasingly frantic as the date approaches in her planning. Whatever she intended, she's been building toward it for months. Sophie breaks her silence during an emergency therapy session. She reveals Tulika has a lieutenant, a 10-year-old named Marcus from the history club. He helped recruit younger children, earning privileges and praise from Tulika. The therapist immediately alerts both families. We now know Tulika didn't work alone. Our backyard security camera captures movement at midnight. Reviewing the footage, Tulika appears clearly from 2 hours ago. She came to retrieve something from our garden shed, moving with purpose and familiarity. She's still accessing our property despite everything. The violation makes my skin crawl. Tulika texts me directly from another burner phone. She offers to call off April 30th if I destroy all evidence, and publicly states she was right about preparing children for future horrors. The manipulation is transparent but chilling. I refuse immediately, knowing any negotiation empowers her delusions. 3 families receive identical letters the next morning. Each one comes from a concerned historian defending Tulika's educational methods. The letters argue that children need preparation for harsh realities. Parents realize she's actively recruiting sympathizers, trying to build support for her twisted ideology. I spend hours cross-referencing dates in Tulika's files with Amy's journals. A clear pattern emerges, showing how Tulika's training escalated after each parental intervention. Every time an adult questioned her methods, she intensified the psychological pressure on children. She disguised punishment as education, making children believe suffering built character. Only 5 families fully believe Tulika poses genuine danger. Others dismiss our concerns as overreaction to creative teaching methods. They point to their children's improved history grades, unable to see the deeper psychological manipulation. The divide frustrates those of us who understand the threat. Searching Tulika's closet ceiling reveals a hidden compartment. Inside lies her master plan, a binder filled with detailed psychological profiles showing exactly how to break each child. She studied interrogation techniques, isolation tactics, and psychological torture methods. The clinical precision of her notes makes me physically ill. Jake decides to stay and help despite his parents wanting to flee town again. He insists Amy deserves justice, and running won't solve anything. His determination strengthens my own resolve. We coordinate efforts, sharing information, and supporting affected families. Mom finally breaks down completely over breakfast. She admits feeling terrified, but also strangely impressed by Tulika's intelligence. She enabled the behavior out of twisted pride, seeing genius where she should have seen danger. The admission helps explain how things escalated so far. Jake suggests using Tulika's own psychological tactics against her, playing her game to win. I refuse immediately. Becoming her means she wins regardless of outcome. We need to stop her without sacrificing our humanity in the process. Through Marcus's mother, I arrange to meet Tulika at an abandoned warehouse she's using as a hideout. She agrees, confident in her ability to manipulate me. During our meeting, she contradicts herself multiple times about April 30th's significance. The lies tangle around her as she struggles to maintain her narrative. Tyler's dad, the veteran, analyzes Tulika's techniques with professional expertise. He confirms they match military SERE training, survival and resistance programs designed for soldiers. But Tulika adapted them for children, removing safeguards and ethical constraints. His assessment validates our worst fears about her capabilities. 2 history club families withdraw their support after their children wake up screaming about failing Tulika's final test. The nightmares describe detailed scenarios of hiding, selection, and survival challenges. Parents finally grasp the psychological damage inflicted under the guise of education. Comparing notes at another parent meeting reveals Tulika's targeting pattern. Every selected child was lonely, bullied, or struggling socially. She preyed on vulnerability with surgical precision, offering belonging and purpose to isolated kids. The predator pattern becomes undeniable once mapped out. Jake's family lawyer offers pro bono help exposing Tulika through civil channels since criminal prosecution seems unlikely. She suggests documenting everything for potential restraining orders and civil suits. The legal avenue provides hope when official channels continue failing us. Tulika calls Dad's hotel directly, reaching him through the lobby phone. She tells him I'm having a breakdown and making wild accusations. Security footage later reveals she never entered the building, just used the courtesy phone and left. Dad calls me confused and concerned. I forward Dad all of Tulika's files, the photos, the evidence we've gathered. He reads through everything on his laptop, his face growing paler with each page. He immediately books a flight home, apologizing profusely for being absent during Tulika's descent into darkness. Tulika's options narrow as parents spread warnings on social media. Local parenting groups share her photo with captions about the dangerous World War II history tutor to avoid. Her ability to recruit new victims diminishes with each shared post. Searching through receipts and credit card records, I find proof Tulika visited Amy the day before her breakdown. The timing matches perfectly with Amy's hospitalization. The graduation ceremony that broke Amy's mind was Tulika's test run for larger plans. I personally visit every remaining child on Tulika's list. Their parents arrange protection plans, changing routines, and increasing supervision. Some families coordinate schedules to ensure children are never alone. The community mobilization brings hope despite the looming deadline. 7 affected families form an official support group. They share information, coordinate watches, and monitor for Tulika's attempts to contact their children. The group chat buzzes constantly with updates and concerns. Parents find strength in numbers. Tulika's fake social media accounts surface regularly before getting reported and banned. Parents recognize her recruiting tactics, the specific language patterns and historical references she uses. Each banned account represents another failed attempt to reach vulnerable children. The school principal finally acknowledges the threat after maintenance staff share security footage. The video from yesterday shows Tulika watching the playground from across the street. She held binoculars and appeared to be signaling specific children. The principal's dismissive attitude evaporates instantly. Local homeschool groups and tutoring centers circulate Tulika's photo with warnings. They describe her dangerous teaching methods and manipulation tactics. The educational community slowly awakens to the predator they unknowingly enabled. Sophie's therapist provides a formal statement documenting the systematic indoctrination and abuse she witnessed. The professional assessment carries weight with skeptical parents. Medical evidence proves harder to dismiss than personal accounts. April 29th arrives with crushing inevitability. Tomorrow is Tulika's planned date. 3 children are reported missing from their homes that morning. The parents receive texts from their children's phones about special training exercises. Panic spreads through our support group. Tulika texts the missing children's parents from spoofed numbers. She claims she's protecting them from weakness, preparing them for harsh realities. The messages alternate between reassurance and veiled threats. Parents struggle to trace the untraceable numbers. The stakes crystallize as Tulika's true plan emerges. She believes April 30th will prove her methods when her graduates demonstrate their training. Whatever she has planned involves multiple children performing coordinated actions. The scope terrifies everyone involved. Instead of panicking, I coordinate with parents to search Tulika's known locations methodically. We divide into teams, sharing GPS locations and maintaining constant communication. The organized response prevents chaos while maximizing coverage. Previously supportive history club parents join our search after their own children reveal secret lessons. They describe private sessions where Tulika taught them things she said parents wouldn't understand. The revelations convert former skeptics into active allies. We locate 2 children at the abandoned elementary school. They crouch behind overturned desks, convinced their guards protecting something important. Their dedication to their posts despite hunger and cold shows Tulika's programming depth. The children refuse to leave until Tulika releases them from duty. We realize she programmed specific loyalty triggers and override commands, so she called the dad through the hotel lobby phone to seem more credible, then vanished before anyone could verify her presence. Who the fuck is this and who thinks of that? Traditional persuasion fails against psychological conditioning. Parents struggle to reach their own kids through Tulika's influence. Tulika texts offering to trade the last child's location for a public statement. She wants me to announce that her methods prepared children for reality better than traditional education. The bargaining reveals her desperation for validation. I refuse again while parents work together using information from our support group. They try different approaches, looking for cracks in Tulika's programming. Eventually, patient repetition of family memories breaks through to one child. Tulika appears at the Robinson house as promised, but it's a trap. We find only her jacket draped on a mannequin with a timer counting down. The misdirection sends everyone into panic mode. Families evacuate while calling bomb squad. The device proves fake after extensive examination. Tulika used our fear response to create a diversion. While we focused on the fake threat, she accessed something else entirely. The manipulation shows her tactical evolution. Racing home, we discover the real purpose of her diversion. She broke into our house during the chaos, retrieving hidden supplies from inside our walls. Mom finds holes cut in the drywall, caches we never knew existed. Tulika planned further ahead than anyone imagined. Using Tulika's own files against her, we identify 3 possible safe houses she prepared. Each location appears in her notes as a contingency site. We split up to check them all, knowing time runs short before midnight. By 11 p.m. on April 29th, we successfully recover all missing children. Parents sob with relief as they reunite with their kids. We think we've prevented whatever Tulika planned for April 30th. The victory feels hard-won but complete. At midnight, parents' phones buzz simultaneously. Tulika scheduled emails detailing each child's psychological weaknesses to send automatically. The messages contain intimate details about their fears, family problems, and vulnerabilities she documented. Parents scramble to check their email drafts and scheduled messages. The veteran dad recognizes the timed send pattern from military operations. He alerts everyone to check their email accounts immediately. Most parents find and delete the scheduled messages before they can send. His quick thinking prevents widespread exposure of the children's private struggles. Police finally take Tulika into custody at 2 a.m. after she attempts to break into another family's home. Officers find her notebook in her backpack during booking. The pages reveal her real April 30th plan in chilling detail. She intended for all her graduates to lock themselves in small spaces to commemorate Anne Frank's experience. Parents realized Tulika wanted to create mass trauma across multiple households simultaneously. She believed this would prove her training methods worked by showing the children could endure isolation and fear. The scope of psychological manipulation becomes clear as investigators piece together her notes. At the warehouse hideout, police discover Tulika wasn't alone. Marcus sits in the corner, still wearing the armband Tulika gave him. He refuses to speak to anyone except Tulika, whom he calls his teacher. His parents arrive devastated to find their son so thoroughly indoctrinated. Security footage from the psychiatric facility shows how Marcus helped Tulika escape. He pulled the fire alarm during visiting hours and guided her through blind spots in the cameras. The 10-year-old had memorized the facility's layout from Tulika's detailed instructions during previous visits. Marcus's parents find a note he left explaining he was continuing the important work with his teacher. The handwriting shows a child trying to sound adult, using phrases Tulika taught him. They realize their son has been her most successful manipulation, a willing accomplice who truly believes her worldview. I search for Marcus and Tulika, while other parents protect their children. The isolation feels familiar, like when I first enabled Tulika's obsession. But now I understand the weight of that complicity. Every child she hurt traces back to my original encouragement. Police locate them at our old childhood treehouse in the park. Tulika sits cross-legged, teaching Marcus about weakness elimination from her notes. Parents converge on the location as word spreads. The community that formed to protect their children now witnesses Tulika's final lesson. Tulika remains calm as parents surround the treehouse. She explains she's saving children from future horror by preparing them now. Her voice carries the same certainty it had when she first started studying World War II. Parents plead with Marcus to come down, but he stands guard like a soldier. She reveals her targeting strategy started with Amy because Amy's grandfather survived the Holocaust. Tulika wanted to test if genetic strength could be inherited. When Amy failed her tests, Tulika moved on to other vulnerable children. The calculated cruelty makes parents gasp. Amy arrives with Jake and her parents. She walks directly to the treehouse and looks up at Tulika. The 12-year-old's voice stays steady as she speaks. She tells Tulika she's not a teacher, but a scared little girl who hurt others because she couldn't handle her own fears. Tulika's composure cracks for the first time. She orders Marcus to complete the mission, though none of us understand what that means. Marcus grips a stick like a weapon, tears streaming down his face. The conflict between his programming and reality plays out in his trembling hands. I step forward, knowing I have to reach Marcus. I explain how Tulika used his loneliness against him, the same way she used my guilt to enable her. I tell him about the other children who broke free from her influence. My voice shakes as I acknowledge my own role in creating this situation. Marcus looks between Tulika and the crowd of parents. His grip on the stick loosens as Tulika's hold weakens. I keep talking about how real teachers don't make students prove themselves through suffering. Real strength comes from choosing kindness over fear. The stick falls from Marcus's hands as he starts sobbing. His parents rush forward as he climbs down from the treehouse. Tulika watches her last follower abandon her ideology. Without Marcus, she has no one left who believes her distorted worldview. Tulika tries to run, but parents form a protective circle. They don't touch her or threaten violence. They simply contain her movement until police arrive. The same community she tried to traumatize now works together to ensure she can't hurt anyone else. She attempts one final manipulation, claiming we're proving her point about mob mentality and group persecution. But her words fall flat. Parents focus on comforting their children instead of engaging with her rhetoric. The power she held through fear and manipulation dissolves completely. Officers take Tulika to a maximum security psychiatric facility designed for dangerous minors. As they guide her to the patrol car, she stares directly at me. Her lips move silently, mouthing April 30th every year. The promise of continued obsession chills me despite her captivity. Families gather in the park after Tulika's removal. Children cling to their parents while adults exchange contact information. The crisis forced strangers to become allies. Now they're choosing to maintain those connections beyond the immediate threat. The next weeks blur together as families process the trauma. Parents coordinate therapy schedules and share recommendations for child psychologists. The support group that formed in crisis becomes a permanent network. They create phone trees and check-in schedules to ensure no child falls through cracks again. Sophie's parents stop blaming me after their daughter starts healing. They recognize I was another victim of Tulika's manipulation, even if my role was different. Sophie draws pictures of butterflies instead of dark spaces now. Progress comes slowly but steadily. Tyler's family implements new routines that balance his need for adventure with safety. His dad uses his military experience to create positive challenges that don't involve psychological manipulation. Tyler learns real survival skills through camping trips instead of traumatic isolation exercises. Amy returns to school with support from the other affected families. She wears a butterfly pin on her backpack that Sophie made for her. The symbol spreads among the children as they reclaim their narrative. They're survivors, not victims, choosing hope over the fear Tulika tried to instill. Marcus requires the most intensive therapy. His parents take leave from work to provide constant support. Deprogramming someone so young but so deeply indoctrinated takes patience. He slowly learns to distinguish between Tulika's lies and reality. Mom enters her own treatment program to address her enabling behavior. She writes letters to each affected family, taking responsibility for her role. Some parents accept her apologies while others need more time. The community respects both responses. Dad restructures his work to spend more time at home. He admits his absence contributed to missing Tulika's descent into darkness. Our family begins the slow process of rebuilding trust and communication. Weekly family therapy sessions force us to confront uncomfortable truths. The school district implements new volunteer screening procedures. Tulika's history club exposed gaps in their protection systems. Parents now require background checks and regular observation for anyone working with children. The changes can't undo the past, but might prevent future predators. I volunteer with the Family Support Network, teaching parents to recognize manipulation tactics. My unique perspective as someone who enabled abuse helps others understand how gradual the process can be. Each session forces me to confront my own guilt while helping others avoid similar mistakes. 6 months pass before Marcus speaks Tulika's name again. He asks his therapist if Tulika was sick or evil. The question has no easy answer. His therapist helps him understand that reasons don't excuse actions. People who hurt children face consequences regardless of their motivations. The warehouse where Tulika held meetings gets demolished. Parents petition the city to build a playground on the site. They want to transform a place of manipulation into somewhere children can play freely. The project brings the community together around creation instead of crisis. Jake's family decides to stay in town. Running would mean Tulika's influence follows them forever. Instead, they join the effort to build something positive from the trauma. Amy helps design the playground, incorporating butterfly themes throughout. On the first anniversary of April 30th, families gather for a picnic in the park. Children play on the new equipment while parents share resources and updates. Tulika remains in treatment, her delusions intact but her reach eliminated. Marcus helps younger children with normal history homework, carefully supervised but trusted with small responsibilities. The community transformed shared trauma into connection. Parents who might never have spoken now watch each other's children. They created something Tulika never expected, a network of protection built on trust instead of fear. I continue teaching boundaries and recognition skills to new parent groups. Each session reminds me that enabling evil through inaction makes us complicit, but choosing courage and accountability can break cycles of harm. The families we saved prove that communities can heal when they work together. Sophie places a butterfly sticker on my hand after one session. She smiles and runs back to her parents. The simple gesture carries more weight than any words. Survival isn't about enduring trauma, but choosing hope despite it. Tulika tried to teach children to live in fear. Instead, they learned to recognize manipulation and seek help. Her graduates chose connection over isolation, trust over paranoia. The cycle she tried to create ended with them. Thanks for reading this story with me today. I hope you have a wonderful evening ahead. I'll see you in the next story.